Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, Kicking the Bottled Water Habit. Today's webinar is presented by Center for a New American Dream and Corporate Accountability International. My name is Wen Lee, and I'm the Director of Online Media and Engagement at Center for a New American Dream. Before we get started, I just wanted to give a few words about how the webinar platform works. On your screen, you should be seeing the webinar slides. And also on the screen, if you're attending this webinar live, you should see a chat box that is interactive. The chat box looks like a white box that is somewhere on your screen. I just entered right now a message letting folks know how to connect via audio. If you can't see the chat box, look for an icon on your screen that looks like a speech bubble. And if you click on the speech bubble icon, a white box should pop up or slide out. And this is where you are able to interact with the speakers on this webinar, as well as myself and other participants. So at this time, I actually would like to get things going by asking everyone to say hi by typing into the chat box and telling us where you are listening in from, what city. And this way we can see where folks are listening in from, and all of you can make sure that your chat box works. Excellent. We have lots of people from all over the United States. This is great to see. Colorado, DC and Utah, New York, North Carolina. Thank you everyone for joining today's webinar. It's so exciting to see so many people interested in this topic of kicking the bottled water habit. So please do use this chat box to interact with each other and to ask questions of our speakers and also to network with each other. I also wanted to give a brief overview about the Center for a New American Dream, which is hosting this webinar. So New Dream is a nonprofit organization that helps Americans to reduce and shift their consumption to improve quality of life, protect the environment, and promote social justice. This webinar series is just a small section of our wide range of programming. Our three program areas are Redefining the Dream, Beyond Consumerism, and Collaborative Communities. We want to give folks the tools and resources to rethink what the American dream means and what success and happiness really comes from. Give folks ideas and tools to get beyond consumerism and to also give real world tools to put together and initiate real projects in their communities. And so this webinar is aimed to get folks excited and inspired to raise campaigns to kick the bottled water habit in their community or in their schools or wherever they are. So kicking the bottled water habit is a growing movement across the United States, whether it's at just schools or at national parks or even entire cities. In fact, just last month, the city of San Francisco passed an ordinance to prohibit the sale of bottled water on public property. And this is such an exciting thing because San Francisco is the biggest city in the country to do so. And so we really commend their bold policies over there. Now, folks everywhere are really starting to realize that, disposable one-time use plastic water bottles are wasteful, and also bottled water is unnecessary. And I know that, it's not easy to get your entire city to ban bottled water, but you can start small by changing policies where you work or where you go to school and where you live. And so today's webinar is focusing on how to get started, how to start a campaign to eliminate bottled water in your community. And we'll be looking specifically at some real-world success stories at universities across the United States. Today, I'm happy to welcome two speakers. We have Lauren DeRusha, who is the National Campaign Organizer at Corporate Accountability International. She is the national campaign organizers for the campaign to challenge corporate control of water. She mobilizes and partners with members and key constituencies to advance the organization's national water program. She actually got her start as a student organizer at Stonehill College, where she led and won the campaign to think outside the bottle. Prior to joining staff at Corporate Accountability International, Lauren completed a Fulbright Fellowship in Ecuador on the effects of local water policy on access to water for impoverished communities. So welcome, Lauren. Our second speaker is Kelsey Baker. Kelsey is a regional student organizer for Corporate Accountability International's Think Outside the Bottle campaign. She is a senior at Santa Clara University in Santa Clara, California. She's studying environmental science and international studies. She began working on the Think Outside the Bottle campaign on her campus in early 2013, and this year her main focus has been planning and preparing for SCU's first ever bottled water free graduation. So welcome, Kelsey and Lauren. You'll be hearing from them today about their experiences eliminating bottled water at university campuses, and also some tips and advice on how you can get something started in your own community. Okay, so a brief outline of what today's webinar is going to look like. We are going to start off with presentations from Lauren and then Kelsey. And then we are going to have a Q&A session where we will ask questions of Lauren and Kelsey. So if you want to contribute a question, please go ahead and just type that into the chat box throughout the webinar. I'll be collecting the questions and keeping them in a list. And then during the Q&A session, I will feed these questions to Lauren and Kelsey. Also, folks are welcome to answer questions in the chat box as well. If those have people who have experience doing these kinds of campaigns, feel free to contribute your experience as well and share what you know. I also want to, I think today I wanted to welcome, there are two other student organizers who hopefully are on the call. Their names are Evelyn and April. So Evelyn Roberts is a student at Mount Holyoke College, and April Shi is a student at Sewanee University of the South, and both of them are also regional student organizers. So if you see them in the chat, then they will also be a good resource for folks, especially university students. And lastly, I wanted to let everyone know that this webinar is being recorded. And you will have access to view this recording as well as download the slides after the webinar is over. So you do not need to worry about writing down everything because you will get this information in your inbox. Okay, so without further ado, I would like to kick off the webinar by handing off the mic to Lauren DeRusha, who is going to talk about the National Think Outside the Bottle campaign and give an overview on how to start a campaign like this in your community. So Lauren, go ahead and take it away.
Great, thank you so much, Wen. Again, my name is Lauren DeRusha, and I am a national campaign organizer with Corporate Accountability International and the Think Outside the Bottle campaign. Thank you so much to everybody for joining us today for this really exciting conversation about how to launch, run, and win Think Outside the Bottle campaigns. So as Wen mentioned originally, we're really concerned about the issue of bottled water, in addition to the fact that it is a widely unnecessary and very environmentally harmful product. At Corporate Accountability International, we're also very concerned about the way that the bottled water industry has spent millions of dollars to try to change the way people think about water, and ultimately to turn water into a commodity that can be bought and sold for profit rather than something that is a human right. And so for that reason, the National Think Outside the Bottle campaign has been a growing movement for many years now. So we have been working with 140 different cities, 6 states, dozens and dozens of universities, as well as dozens of national parks to think outside the bottle and to end the sale and distribution of bottled water in all of these locations, while at the same time increasing access to tap water. And so I wanted to just talk for a moment about the impact of this organizing. We have seen time after time through the history of our country and society that organizations such as universities have an incredible amount of power and can have a tremendous impact in social movements. And through the organizing that we have done with different universities as well as states and cities, we've seen a really strong public climate shift away from bottled water and towards promoting tap water. And what's really fun is that sometimes we get to see in a really clear way the impact of that organizing. So what you see here in the photos are pictures from Coca-Cola's Drop into Dasani college campus tour that it launched a couple of years ago. And what we've seen is that Dasani has been, which is the bottled water brand of Coca-Cola, has been so impacted by the organizing that's been happening on student campuses and all across the country that it has spent tremendous resources to create this Dasani College tour where they have a bounce house, as you can see, that is filled with confetti, and they take photographs of students and slap the Dasani logo on it as an opportunity for them to try to use students as billboards essentially for their product and to really try to get back this piece of the market that they feel they have been losing. And that's because students have been so effective in the organizing that they have done to really turn folks away from bottled water, to make sure that students are educated about the impacts of bottled water and the industry. And so this is just it's a little bit of an absurd example, but it's pretty fun to actually see how much we are making an impact to the point where even the bottled water industry feels that it has to do something to be able to try to get these students back. So we have a national student network, and this is a group of students that we have worked with to run campaigns to think outside the bottle all across the country. And these students work with us on a very constant basis to receive organizing trainings, skills trainings, campaign planning trainings, and they come to Boston actually to receive these trainings with us and are constantly coming together, sharing resources, and working together on national campaign actions to really challenge the bottled water industry. Now, in terms of what it takes to win a bottled water free campaign, I know that sometimes it can feel like there is a big mystery about what you have to do. The answer is actually really simple. Ultimately, what you need to win a bottled water free campaign is just a lot of support. So this is student support, community support, whoever it is that you're organizing. Ultimately, all you really need to do is to show the folks who have the authority to make the decision just how many people are behind you and how important it is to make this change to go bottled water free. So I have broken down here a couple different stages of the campaign that we will get into a little bit more detail with as we go through the presentation. So I like to think of phase one as just the kickoff. This is the moment where you're launching the campaign. And phase one is very short, and everything you do in phase one will continue as you carry out your campaign. But the very first step is just recruiting your group, educating your peers, and really starting to create a buzz around campus or at your organization so that folks start to think about the issue of bottled water, to start to think critically, and to start to understand the campaign and why we're running it and why it's so important. Phase two, which should be launched pretty soon after phase one, is going to involve some investigation where you're determining some factors that will affect how you run your campaign. So these are things like how much bottled water is currently sold, how much is currently bought. You'll set up a meeting with an administrator to talk to them about the campaign and set some really concrete goals for how you're going to achieve everything that you set out to in order to win this campaign. And then, of course, in phase two, we're continuing everything we started in phase one, which is the education, the visibility. You can always be recruiting more folks to help you out with the campaign, and we want to keep that buzz going throughout the entire time. And then the last phase is going to be the implementation of all of these strategies and tactics to make sure we stay on track to meet those goals. So the first phase, one of your very first steps is going to be recruiting the group. And we use the pledge to think outside the bottle as a tool. It's essentially a petition and that asks folks to support the campaign and to opt to choose tap water over bottled water. And so we do this through petitioning or tabling, through class presentations, going door to door, be it on campus or in the community, as well as activity fairs, community events. And we also have this great tool called a Tap Water Challenge that is essentially a taste test that you challenge folks to tell the difference between tap water and bottled water. Most people cannot, and it's a really engaging way to get people talking about the campaign. As well as photo petitions, which is another great way to get support and to really engage people as they're walking by. There are also many different film screenings that a lot of our students have shown with great success. I've listed a few here. We also really encourage educational flyers that you can put up in any type of common area where folks will read them in their spare time. You can see here on the right a poster that was put up by the students at Western Washington University that actually just went officially bottled water free on April 1st, which is exciting. But you can see that's a very engaging flyer and helped to get a lot of folks to come out to their screening of the film Tapped. And then I would say the biggest, most important piece of the education part of your campaign is to be creative. There's no reason to limit ourselves to what's been done before in the past. And it's one of the things that I think makes this kind of organizing so unique, is that folks have come up with some really creative ideas to get the education piece and visibility out there. So you can see here a bottled water sculpture made out of water bottles with different facts about bottled water. In the center, we've got a photo petition that is by one of our regional student organizers, actually spoofing the Dasani domes, that the bounce house with the confetti. So it's very creative, as you can see. And then on the right, we've got actually a bedazzling event where the students at Western Washington collected old reusable water bottles that were going to be thrown out, washed them, and then invited students to bedazzle them or to decorate them, make them their own, and take home a free reusable bottle with them in exchange for their pledge to think outside the bottle. And we also, in terms of creating a buzz, have a couple of really great opportunities to involve the local media as well as to take advantage of social media. So we can see here several student campaigns have taken advantage, reached out to their local papers to get them to cover different events. As well as social media, it's great to start a Facebook or a Twitter page where you let folks know not only information about the bottled water issue and about the campaign, but also how people can get involved in the time and location of your meetings to really invite folks. And then once we started to build up this buzz, we've got the campaign kicked off, we've got people interested, people are talking about it, we want to start doing some really strategic investigation and finding out what is the status at your school or at your organization. How much bottled water is being bought and sold? Where is it being bought and sold? What is the access to tap water, or what is the state of the water fountains or hydration stations? Where is that infrastructure going to need to be updated? As well as who is going to be the person who has the authority to ultimately make the decision to go bottled water free. And then I would encourage everyone to have a meeting with that person once you've determined who it is. At most universities, it's likely to be the school president. And the intention of this meeting is to really educate this administrator about the campaign and really propose to work together. So we want to be positioning ourselves as allies here, as the folks who are really excited to help make this change, to help make our school or organization more socially just and more sustainable. And we are willing to work together and provide all of the support that it's going to take to make this decision. And then we also want to ask in a really straightforward way, what will it take? What kind of support will you need to see in order to go bottled water free, and how can my group help provide that? And then we want to set some goals. So we want to set goals in a couple of different areas. The first thing is to create a timeline, because we really want to think about how long we expect our campaign to run. And I really encourage people not to set timelines that are too far out, to think, well, maybe we could win in 5 years. No way. Well-organized campaigns are able to win on a very fast timeline. And so I would encourage folks to think big, to get organized, and to set pretty short timelines and do our best to stick to them to be able to win these campaigns on a fast timeline. We also want to set goals for petitioning for our Think Outside the Bottle pledge. So for larger universities or organizations, we're looking at 10% of the student body or the folks involved. Or for smaller universities, we shoot for 50%. And then whatever other tactics you've decided to pursue based on the information you found out during your investigation phase, maybe that's getting certain departments to sign the pledge, maybe it's affecting the sales of bottled water. We want to be setting goals for those pieces as well. And really making a plan for how we're going to achieve those goals and checking in constantly with our goals against our timeline to make sure that we're staying on track and making changes as necessary to ensure that we hit those goals on the timeline that we set. And then the third phase is going to be just to implement all of those strategies and tactics, carry out the plans we made during goal setting, be checking in constantly, make sure we're getting those petition signatures, we're reaching the folks with our education and visibility tactics, and then anything else that we've decided is going to be strategic for our campaign to affect this change. And then finally, we want to present the results of our organizing back to this administrator or decision maker, along with a proposal to go bottled water free. And so here we've got an example of Western Washington's ultimate decision to go bottled water free after returning with the results of the organizing and the overwhelming student and staff support for this resolution. And then finally, I would just add that we should really not be taking no for an answer. And this is one of the most fun pieces of organizing, is that we really have the power of the people on our side. And we have the support, and all we have to do is show it. We're really on the right side of this issue here. We know that this is a social justice and sustainability issue, and that it's really the right thing to do for our schools and organizations to be going bottled water free and to be supporting tap water. And all we really need to do is make sure that we continue to organize to be that school of fish in the bottom part of that photo there, and to keep going back and not take no for an answer. So if you don't receive the answer that you were hoping for when you went back to the administrator or person in charge, that's okay. It just means we need to keep organizing, we need to regroup, find another strategy, and continue building that massive support for this initiative. And ultimately, we're going to be able to win these campaigns. And that is all I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for tuning in. And I would encourage anyone who's interested in launching a campaign to think outside the bottle, especially at a university, to send me an email, and I will be very happy to introduce you to our National Student Network and bring you on board.
Great. Thank you so much, Lauren, for that presentation. I hope that folks who are at university campuses got some great tips on what they can do to start something at their school, but also for those who are not campus organizers, are not university students, I think that a lot of the tips and tricks that Lauren mentioned are applicable to any kind of bottled water campaign, whether it's at your workplace or at K through 12 schools, or in your city as well. So we wanted to have a close look at a specific case study. And so we have invited Kelsey Baker, who is a student at Santa Clara University and is in the thicket, I don't know if that's a term, in the thick of a big campaign to go bottled water free at her campus. So I want to invite Kelsey to share her experiences working at her school and the successes that she's seen.
Yeah, thank you so much, Wen, for having me, and thanks everyone for tuning in. I'm excited to share a little bit about our campaign here at Santa Clara. So as Wen introduced me, my name is Kelsey Baker, and I am a senior at Santa Clara University in California. And I've been leading the Think Outside the Bottle campaign on our campus since about January of 2013, so a little over a year. And today I'll be sharing the story of our campaign here at Santa Clara as an example of how a Think Outside the Bottle campaign can work. I'll be following a similar format to Lauren's presentation with specific and concrete examples. And as Lauren discussed, it can really help to separate your campaign into separate phases. Organization is really a key component to running a successful campaign, so starting with some structure right off the bat can be very beneficial. So as Lauren mentioned, recruitment is a crucial first step. We started the Santa Clara Think Outside the Bottle campaign within a program for student clubs, so we were able to start off with some great leaders from already established organizations on campus. And reaching out to clubs with a sustainability or social justice focus can be a great place to look for people to get involved. And from there, we started tabling in the dining hall and on other campus hubs to get more people aware about the campaign and involved in our work. Also, on-campus events like Earth Day fairs can be a great place to look for people to get involved and get your name out there. Finally, social media and basic email has really been a great way to recruit new members to our campaign. Here at Santa Clara, the Think Outside the Bottle campaign is a project within our environmental club. So we already have a great networking base to work with. And when we have Think Outside the Bottle meetings or events, we send out a large email to the entire club. And we also post news and events on Facebook and encourage other student clubs to help share and promote it. So education, outreach, and raising awareness has been really central to our campaign here at Santa Clara from the get-go. And one of our major goals is to reduce bottled water sales on campus. And educating the students about the harms of bottled water is key to make that happen. Hosting events is a really great way to inform a large group of people about an issue. One of these pictures here is a movie screening we hosted. The movie Tapped, which I saw some people talking about in the chat, which is awesome. It's a really great documentary on bottled water. So to increase attendance at these events, we've often partnered with professors from the Environmental Studies and Sciences Department who give extra credit to their students that attend the screening. And one professor even gave extra credit to students who got petition signatures on our Think Outside the Bottle pledge, which was super awesome. Weekly TOTB meetings are other events that we hold on a regular basis, and it's another great way to raise awareness about our campaign and our goals. And we open our meetings to everyone, so leaders within the campaign who have been involved before, as well as new students who haven't been involved in the past. And getting new people involved is a great way, or is key to recruitment. So publicity is kind of more behind the scenes work, but just as important, like social media and designing signs or flyers. At Santa Clara, we use social media to share news related to bottled water. For instance, the recent update that Santa Clara passed a bottled water policy. And we also use social media to inform people about our meetings and other events. At Santa Clara, a lot of other student organization and groups have Facebook pages and accounts, so we also use it as a collaboration tool to share and promote each other's events and work, which is a big help. Another form of media that has helped us raise awareness is the student-run newspaper. The Santa Clara has written a couple articles on our campaign, one of which should be linked here. And the Center for Sustainability also puts out a monthly newsletter and recently included an article on Think Outside the Bottle as well. Our school is relatively small, and the great thing about running a campaign here is that there's usually someone who knows someone. So we just reached out to the newspaper, sending a quick email asking if the Think Outside the Bottle campaign could be featured, which is a great place to start. And chances are there are a few different publications that are circulated on your campus, and reaching out to them is a great way to educate the entire campus community. Also on our campus, we have digital signs in almost every building where we try to have a consistent Think Outside the Bottle advertisement to spread messages as wide as possible. Finally, petitioning is also a central aspect of the SU campaign. And petitioning is really tangible evidence of student support and can be a really effective way to influence the administration or decision makers on campus. So typically we petition while tabling in the dining hall, but we also clipboard or walk around with a clipboard and petition in hand, and perhaps an informational flyer or sticker to reach a larger audience. Students can sometimes be hesitant to approach you while tabling, and clipboarding allows you to be the instigator in the conversation. Investigation. So doing some research was really key to the initial stages of our campaign. We kind of did research in two aspects. One, looking into other schools that have successfully become bottled water free, and two, the water situation on our own campus, which included the quantity of bottled water sold on a monthly basis, the availability of tap water, the decision-making authorities on campus, as well as looking into the mission and values of the school. The National Think Outside the Bottle campaign at Corporate Accountability International and the National Student Network provide some great resources on schools that have been successful in the past in becoming bottled water free, and those that are currently running campaigns. And as for the investigations into our own campus, we had to do some more work. So we found that to get in touch with administrators and decision makers on campus, a simple email or phone call is a really great way to initiate conversations. So my advice would be, don't be hesitant to contact the decision makers. We've had great responses so far, and many of the admins are really supportive and impressed that students are taking time to address an issue we believe in. And currently at Santa Clara, we're working with auxiliary and dining services to examine the monthly bottled water sales. And this has allowed us to determine the exact venues on campus where most bottled water is sold. And then using this information, we're able to target specific dining locations as well as the students that shop there with our education and outreach efforts. At Santa Clara, tap water is readily available, and we have multiple refilling stations in the majority, if not all, buildings. So convenience is a big topic that comes up when discussing bottled water, and ensuring that there are enough tap water sources available is a really important alternative to bottled water. Next, we looked into who has the decision-making power on our campus, and our goal was to find out what we needed to do in order to successfully become a bottled water-free university. So over the course of our campaign, we've met with many administrators. Most recently, we've been working with the President's Office and are currently waiting to hear back regarding a bottled water-free policy proposal we drafted and shared with them. And like I said, we've also been working with dining and auxiliary services on reducing bottled water sales, as well as some other initiatives like selling reusable bottles in dining venues across campus, as well as bottled water-free graduation. Another very valuable aspect of our research included looking into our school's mission, vision, and goals. Santa Clara University is a Jesuit university, and therefore Catholic teachings and values play a huge role in who we are. And the words social justice and sustainability are actually in our university's vision statement, which is super cool. Because our school has these commitments, we've been fortunate to work with many administrators who support the campaign and our work. Because when it comes down to it, not supporting our campaign would be going against the social justice and sustainability values laid out in our vision statement, and therefore what our school stands for. So setting some goals. After speaking with administrators at Santa Clara and decision makers, we were able to write down some goals and make a timeline. Dining and auxiliary services told us we needed to reduce bottled water sales. So in response to that, we've tabled at locations with highest bottled water sales, collected petition signatures, and done some other things like partnering with the bookstore to give our supporters a discount on reusable bottles. Our ultimate goal is to win the campaign and pass a bottled water-free policy by the end of this academic year, which is really exciting. It's coming up soon. And we're also aiming to get about 20% of the student body to sign our petition in supporting a bottled water-free Santa Clara University. Right now, we're about 2/3 of the way to our goal, and we're working hard this quarter to set a petitioning schedule and carry that out until the end of the year. For an example of our petitioning efforts, a few weeks ago at the end of winter quarter, we had an intensive clipboarding and tabling effort to collect petition signatures and raise more awareness right before spring break, especially at the locations with high bottled water sales. And it was a really busy time around finals, but we rallied our team and created a weekly schedule that people could stick to, where everyone signed up for as many shifts as they could to table and clipboard to get some more petition signatures. And we're still waiting for the next bottled water sales report to see the impact, and we're hopeful that our efforts paid off. So finally, becoming bottled water free. So as Lauren mentioned, don't take no for an answer. Something important to keep in mind is that becoming bottled water free is not only compelling for environmental, social justice, and economic reasons, but when Santa Clara becomes bottled water free, we're going to get a lot of publicity. And we can claim that we stick to our Jesuit values and support student initiatives and involvement on campus. So framing the benefits of the campaign in a way that administrators can support it or can't not support it can be a really great approach. And at Santa Clara, considering our vision statement and Catholic values, there's really no excuse to not go bottled water free. So that's all I have for now. Thank you for listening. And please don't hesitate to contact me with any questions. I would love to talk to all of you.
Thank you, Kelsey. I really appreciate hearing about your experience, and really great job on everything that you're doing there at SCU. Keep up the great work. We're really excited to see how things turn out. So we are going to go into Q&A so that folks can ask more specific questions from these two ladies. But before we do that, I just wanted to let folks know about some more resources that are available for people who are interested in starting bottled water campaigns. New Dream is unveiling our Unbottled Water campaign, which consists of this webinar that you're listening to right now, but also we're about to release a step-by-step guide on kicking the bottled water habit in your community. This is going to be a downloadable PDF with a step-by-step information on how you can get started. This is going to be out by the late April or early May. So please do keep an eye out for this guide. We'll be sure to send out an email when this is available. And we're also right now in the works, we're making a video spotlighting specifically the ordinance in San Francisco and really showing how that city was able to get this ordinance passed. It was really a monster effort by not just folks in the city, but also a coalition of nonprofit organizations and advocacy groups, including Corporate Accountability International. So keep an eye out for our video, which is going to be coming out in the next couple months, where you can learn more about what happened in San Francisco. Also, in addition to New Dreams resources, if folks didn't already know about these resources, I wanted to make sure that everyone knew. Corporate Accountability International's Think Outside the Bottle campaign, the website has a great large amount of information, a lot of downloadable guides that you can have, and specifically they have a whole organizing guide on how to do a tap water challenge, where you get folks to try out bottled water versus tap water to see if you can tell the difference. It's a really nice practical guide on how to organize an event like that yourself, along with a whole bunch of other guides like how to get Congress and politicians and your political leaders to stop using public money to fund bottled water. And so I really encourage everyone to check out stopcorporateabuse.org. Also, the Story of Bottled Water is a video, an animation done by the Story of Stuff Project with Annie Leonard. And you can watch the video at storyofbottledwater.org. It's a really great, it's about like 7 or 8 minutes long, great sort of introduction to what is the problem with bottled water and how we got to where we are today. And if you're having an event, really encourage you to consider using this video to do a film screening. If you're a teacher or an educator, I really encourage you to use this video in your classroom. And lastly, Food and Water Watch has a Take Back the Tap campaign with tons of resources as well on their website. So please do go to foodandwaterwatch.org and check out what they have available there. as well. Great. Okay, so we've been getting a lot of questions in the chat, and I've really enjoyed seeing the conversations that have been unfolding as people have been sharing their experiences with bottled water campaigns. And also, I'm really happy to have Lauren and Kelsey answer some of the questions that you have specifically about campaigns at universities or bottled water campaigns in general. So the first question I'd like to ask Lauren and Kelsey actually is, in your experience, like when you're trying to get people excited about banning bottled water, it seems like one theme that both of you have been saying is that it's really important to get a critical mass and a lot of people behind you to get support. So what are some of the talking points that you've seen that has worked best? What are some of the best tactics to really get people on board to join your campaign? So I don't know, Lauren, do you want to go first?
Sure, yeah. Thanks, Son. That's a really great question. And I think that drawing from my personal experience when I was a student organizer at Stonehill College, and some of the most important work that we did at the very beginning was just talking to folks about bottled water, because so many people had not ever really thought critically about it, because the bottled water industry has done such a good job of really changing the way we think about water and making this unnecessary product something that folks feel is necessary and that folks really depend on without thinking too critically about it. And so some of the best points that I found that were really helpful to explain the campaign to people who had not really thought about it too much is that essentially, water is a basic human right. And when it is treated as a commodity, our democracy, our health, and the environment really suffer. And so we're really concerned about the way that bottled water corporations have attempted to change the way people think about water, and that they've really manufactured a demand for this essential resource that really already flows freely from our taps. And that, these corporations have attempted to convince people and communities that the only place they can get clean, safe water is from a bottle. As a society, we really need to be asking ourselves, who is providing our water? Do we want that to be Coke, Nestle, and Pepsi, or do we want it to be our own democratically governed towns and cities that are really accountable to the public? And really want to be making sure that as we are facing a global water crisis and the fact that scarcity is a huge and growing issue that much of our world faces, and even those of us who are not in that situation right now ultimately will need to be asking ourselves this question and considering this issue of scarcity, is who do we want to be in control of our water? And right now, water corporations are positioning themselves to profit from water scarcity and to be the ones who ultimately have a say in who gets access to water if they are able to control the prices. And so I think that's one of the biggest issues that folks often are not aware of, and many people care about the issue of bottled water from an environmental standpoint, which of course is extremely important. But we found that it's also really helpful to kind of pull in this additional dialogue about corporate control of water and the threat that corporate control of water really poses in a world with a growing water crisis.
Yeah, I'll just jump in. I'll kind of echo what Lauren just said, but in terms of talking points at Santa Clara, we found that students can be motivated by different things when it comes to the issue of bottled water. So we kind of have four main talking points. Obviously, the environment. A lot of people are motivated by sustainability and environmental issues. So bottled water is not sustainable in terms of the waste stream that it creates and how it's manufactured and produced and distributed. An economic aspect has also been helpful. There's a statistic out there. It's something like bottled water is 10,000 times more expensive than tap water, and especially college students are motivated by economic reasons. Sometimes we're on a tight budget, so that can be a really good talking point. Also, social justice issues. A lot of people are motivated by human rights and things like that. And Lauren touched on the fact that water is a human right and shouldn't be a commodity that's bought and sold for profit. And then the fourth one is health. Bottled water is sold obviously in plastic containers, which has been shown to cause health problems with chemicals leaching out of the plastic into the water. So we found that a lot of students kind of respond to that, if not the other talking points as well.
Great. Thanks for that helpful advice. There is a question that Madonna asked, and she's wondering if there's a food service, department or a store, that actually profits from sales of bottled water. What are some tactics that you would recommend to talk to them about convincing them why um, they should go bottled water free when they do get revenue from bottled water?
Great. So sorry, this question is about if, for example, like the food service provider at a university or some other vendor.
Right, like if a school is like they sell bottled water, and they actually get some revenue from that, maybe from vending machines, or maybe at the university store, or maybe like just stores in general in a city or at a workplace that get revenue from selling bottled water.
Mm-hmm. Great. So we have worked, obviously this is an issue that has come up a lot. One thing that we really encourage is for organizations to increase their sales of reusable bottles. And so actually in our work with national parks, this is something that has come up because of course parks have been concerned about losing their bottled water sales and what they would do about that revenue. And we actually found in working with the Grand Canyon, since it went bottled water free and increased the availability of reusable bottles and got different reusable bottles at different price points. So they range from anywhere from like $1.99 to maybe $20 or $30, depending on the quality of the bottle. And they actually have been able to make up for all of their lost sales and then some from the bottled water. Actually by just selling these reusable bottles. So that's one really great opportunity for folks to think about how they can make up that profit in a way that is sustainable and really in support of this initiative.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I see that Amy has also said in the chat that she also suggested selling branded reusable water bottles. For a
Mm-hmm.
school or for a festival, you can put the logo on of the event. And I mean, if you do need to make revenue and you want to do that by selling something having to do with liquids, then reusable bottles are better than disposable plastic. And I'm not sure, Kelsey, did you want to say something?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, what Lauren said was great. And just to give it a specific example, at Santa Clara, decreasing bottled water sales has been a really focus of our campaign recently, because the administration has told us that in order to be successful in our campaign, that needs to be something that we do. So we've been really focused on decreasing demand, which obviously in turn would decrease the profit of bottled water. So that's one thing that we're working for. And then also creating an affordable reusable bottle, because a lot of students have told us that convenience is the main issue when it comes to water, and because bottled water is at a lot of locations on campus and it's cheap, they buy it because it's there, and maybe they have a reusable bottle but they forget it at home. So selling, like Amy mentioned in the chat, selling branded reusable bottles is a great way to get people to go for that alternative instead of bottled water, and making it affordable too.
Right. Yeah, and there were some questions earlier too about whether you guys know of campaigns outside of universities that have been successful, whether at cities or at like K through 12 schools, or big events or maybe marathons. And I just want to jump in on that and say that I do know that a lot of high schools have successfully been able to install refill stations, and a lot of like green teams or environmental clubs. This is like a great project for students to get around. get petitions from students who want to have something like this installed at their school, and to also raise the money, do a fundraiser, and get grants to install one of these refill stations at their high school. And these stations are great because they also have a little display that tells you how many plastic water bottles have been avoided by the amount of water that has been used at the station. And a lot of high schools that I've seen is that it's been extremely successful, encouraging students to bring their own reusable bottles to school, and to not use plastic water bottles. But Lauren or Kelsey, do you guys know of other success stories outside of university settings? Maybe Lauren from Corporate Accountability International, other non-university case studies that you can briefly share about?
Sure, Wen. Yeah, I was just looking for a link, and I can share it with everyone after. But we have worked in the past with actually 140 cities as well as 6 states that have passed legislation to end their budget spending on bottled water. So that's a really great example. And in addition to some of the public official organizing, as I mentioned, there also has been a growing movement of national parks that have been going bottled water free or are in the process. Now we're counting about 24, but that number is constantly growing, of national parks that are joining into this movement. And then I would say just that we're constantly hearing of other places that are going bottled water free. We've worked with restaurants and certain stores to go end the sale of bottled water. But we also are constantly hearing from our members in different ways about festivals and other schools and just all over the country, I would say. This is a movement that has been growing pretty constantly, and that our members at Corporate Accountability have been taking a lot of initiative on.
Cool. Thanks,
Yeah,
Lauren.
I'd love to add something really quick. For our bottled water free graduation this year at Santa Clara, it's a really large scale event with a lot of people in attendance. And we're working with this company called Flow Water, which is based in San Francisco, California. I'll put the link in the chat right here. But this is just an example of a really great organization that provides refill stations. And they don't only work with universities, they work at large scale events. I think they started in Hawaii, so they've worked at surfing competitions and things like that. And they are a great alternative to providing bottled water.
Excellent. Thanks, Kelsey. So Kathy asked a question earlier. She said she works at a corporation where the executives had initially supported to have no plastic water bottles, but they haven't actually followed through with it. And the staff are still, behind with the program. But do either of you have any advice on what Kathy could do to try to help encourage the people who are in leadership positions to actually follow through with what, the rest of the consensus of the organization wants to do?
Sure, absolutely. Kathy, congratulations on getting this initiative going. And it is something that sometimes comes up in our organizing to think outside the bottle. A lot of times folks, they will initially support the the movement to think outside the bottle, and then kind of might get tripped up on some details, and maybe it falls by the wayside because it wasn't, the top priority. And so, this is kind of, I think, a really great example of our not taking no for an answer and just continuing to be persistent. I know I saw some comment in the chat box about a petition. I think that that's a really great idea. Whether, there was a petition initially or not, it might be a great thing to get another one circulating just to remind folks who, the authorities who are supposed to be taking action on this issue, that there is really widespread support. I would also encourage, again, a meeting with a really clear agenda about, finding out what's happened to this initiative, and really figuring out, Kathy, what's the best way for you to be a resource, in addition to reminding these folks that this is a commitment that was made and that there is really widespread support for your business to go bottled water free. To also hear from them, what is it that's tripping them up, is there any particular obstacle or any kind of resources that they're missing that's been making it difficult for them to follow through? And then that can be also a great opportunity for you to provide them any pieces that are missing, or of course, Think Outside the Bottle is happy to be a resource to help overcome these obstacles. It's one of the things that we found most helpful about the National Student Network is that we've pulled together a whole group of folks all across the country who are facing really similar questions and overcoming really similar barriers. So it's really also helpful often to do some resource sharing and to find out how people have overcome certain obstacles in the past to be able to provide really functional and quick solutions for the people at your business who might be having some trouble.
Yeah, that's great, Lauren. Thank you. Kelsey, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, sure. So within our proposal that we recently submitted to the administration at Santa Clara, we kind of outlined a system of accountability where when we do pass a bottled water policy, we can have some sort of check-in, whether that's like weekly meetings, just to make sure that we're following the things we laid out within the policy to make sure that it's successful and carried out. Yeah.
Great. Okay, well, we are at the top of the hour, so we do need to wrap up this webinar. I do want to give a huge thank you to both Lauren and Kelsey for taking time out of their busy schedules to share their experiences. I also want to thank the entire Think Outside the Bottle team for sharing resources and helping to make this webinar possible, Corporate Accountability International for partnering with us on this webinar. And I also want to thank all of you for attending this webinar and showing initiative and showing that you care about this issue enough to register for this webinar and to learn more. I hope that you did take away some helpful information, and I do want to thank also the folks who have shared their experiences in the chat box and shared links and other campaigns that they have been involved with. For next steps, we are going to send out a webinar survey today asking you what you thought of this webinar. Please take a few minutes to fill it out. It really helps us improve our webinar program. And again, the recording for this webinar and the slides will be available online starting on Monday. And we will be sending an email to everyone who registered for this webinar to let folks know about when those resources are available. And of course, a very important next step is to just go forth and start your campaign or continue with your campaign. It really just starts with you taking the first step to get things going. And we all want to have a world that is more sustainable and is less wasteful. And one of the biggest things that we can do, at least in our communities, is to eliminate products like bottled water, which are just unnecessary and really sort of like a notorious example of sort of blind consumerism that has taken over in our society. So I hope that you all are inspired and will take the initiative to learn more and do more in your community. If you want to contact New Dream, you can email us at newdream@newdream.org. And do take advantage of the resources that are out there and learn about other campaigns that are available. But I want to give everyone a huge thank you. And my name is Wen Lee with the Center for a New American Dream. On behalf of the whole Center for a New American Dream team and also Corporate Accountability International, I want to thank everyone for their time and have a great day.